All right, ladies, so let's get into this mini series about how to stop attracting toxic relationships. It starts with you. All right, so let's get into the first tip: set boundaries. Learn to set boundaries, okay? So, have you ever had a guy call you super late at night, like after 10 p.m., and he only calls after 10 p.m.? Which is a red flag, but this is an example, right? Have you ever had a guy only text you, but you want to talk on the phone? Have you ever had a guy make a move on you and you went for it? And I mean, you went all the way for it and you went with it. Now, if you answer yes to any of these questions, how about this? Have you done all of those things and it's not what you want? Like, you went all the way with somebody that you didn't want to go all the way with, but for some reason you just felt like you couldn't say no. And this is not putting it on the guy or him being extra pushy or aggressive. This is just straight up you having trouble saying no. Now, maybe in your childhood, for whatever reason, you started to believe that you couldn't say no to things you didn't want to do, or you couldn't make certain requests for how you wanted to be treated, or just what you wanted in general. And so you kind of feel stuck in situations where you have to make a decision. You have to stand on your beliefs and just the standards that you have for yourself, or maybe you haven't developed any standards. So really quick, let's go over what boundaries actually are. Boundaries are the limits and rules that we set for ourselves within relationships. Now, I don't know about you, but until I started trying to work on myself and heal and learn from my past mistakes and whatever, I seriously didn't really know what boundaries were. I don't even know if I heard of boundaries until a few years ago, right? So like me, maybe you haven't heard of what boundaries are. You're like, what are you talking about? I have a choice in the matter. But seriously, I didn't know that I had a choice on who could be in my life and what behavior was acceptable to me. I just thought I had to deal with whatever people gave or run away. But those are not, those are both terrible. Literally, I just did not know how to say no. I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to just express what I wanted and desired with confidence either. When you set a boundary, you are setting a parameter for your own behavior, for what you would do in any event that somebody crosses the line, crosses a boundary with you, because you cannot control someone else. So let's go over an example of what that would look like. Okay, so let's say you're getting into a new relationship and you're talking to a guy, y'all getting to know each other. Y'all are just trying to see if you're on the same page, right? So you tell him things you do and don't like in a relationship, right? Or what you will and won't deal with, right? And you bring up cheating as one of your deal breakers. Like, hey, I could deal with a lot of things, but I can't deal with cheating. If you feel like you're not getting something from me, let's talk about that before it ever gets to the point where you step out, right? And say, if that happens, I leave immediately, because I make it very clear in the beginning that I don't put up with that behavior, right? And so let's say he agrees and he says, yeah, I'm for it. I would never do that, right? And then he expresses what his deal breakers are, right? So let's say a month later, you find out that he was cheating on you and you break up with him immediately. That's an example of setting a boundary, having a standard for how you want to be treated, and then sticking to your boundary by doing exactly what you said would happen if your boundary was crossed. This isn't the same as an ultimatum, or it's not manipulative in any way, because you let him know up front that you don't deal with that, and that if that was something that was to happen, especially because you said talk to me first before you feel like you need to step out on me, and then he does it anyway, that's a complete sign of disrespect for you and for on so many levels. And so you breaking things off immediately is healthy, because it shows that your principles, your standards are fixed, and whoever's gonna be your person needs to adhere to those in order to be with you, and you definitely need to adhere to their standards and their boundaries and their principles in order to be with them. In fact, you guys should share a lot of those things, right? Now, what's very interesting about this example is I never used to do this. I never did this. Like, when I was dating in relationships, I never had these conversations. I was just like happy to have somebody. So don't go into things desperate, because then your boundaries will not matter. In fact, you won't write it down. You'll be like, because then who am I gonna date? Who am I gonna talk to? Like, if I have all this stuff that you can and can't do with me, I might be single for a long time, right? I might, and so like I might not never get anybody. And so maybe you don't want that, right? But if you love yourself, if you value yourself, you will start to take it serious. You will be like, you know what? I might have to be alone for a while, because I need to figure out what I want, what my principles are, what my values are, in order to be strong enough, and who I am and what I stand for, in order to be strong enough to set a boundary. Because best believe, when a guy can tell that you don't have a standard, that you're desperate or lonely, and that you let that guide your decisions when dating, then you're going to keep dating the type of man that you complain about. Tip number 1, set boundaries. All right, so now that you know what boundaries are, I'm going to need you to do some homework. Set aside like 20-30 minutes and write the top 5 to 7 qualities that you desire in a man. Then next, you're going to write your top 5 to 7 deal breakers and give explanations for each. Give the explanations for why you want these specific qualities to be present in the man that you are with. And then give explanations for why certain behaviors are deal breakers. Then come up with 5 to 7 ways you can implement boundaries overall in your life. It doesn't have to be in a relationship. It can be in friendships or family or at work. And comment on the video. What are some of the boundaries that you already have or that you think you need? Come back for tip number 2. It'll be up soon.